I'd like to call to order, please, the Board of Education meeting for Saline Area Schools for October 11th, 2022 at 6:31 p.m. If everyone could all please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. In honor of tradition and in honor of being student-led with our Pink Out against Bedford on Friday night, we are wearing our pink in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And Trustee Estep is absent this evening. Just wanted to make that announcement. This is our first opportunity for public comment. Betty, do we have any forms? Okay. Moving forward, no response to previous public comment, with the exception of we have the Let's Talk email feature on our Saline Area Schools website, and our email is sasboard@salineschools.org. Moving on to revisions and approval of the agenda. Items may be added or deleted from the meeting agenda, and or the order of items may be changed at the request of an individual board member or the superintendent. The agendas must be approved before proceeding further. I'd like to please entertain a motion and move to approve the agenda as printed.
So moved. McVeigh.
Michael, thank you.
Support, Jones.
Candace, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 6-0. Moving on to our student showcase, High School Science Olympiad. If our friends could please approach. Whenever you are ready, just push the mic to on. You'll see the green light, and you are ready to go.
All right, good evening. My name's Natha Kella, former head coach of Science Olympiad for the high school, and I'd like to introduce this year's captains, Ryan, Kira, and Alice.
Hi, I'm Ryan Landini. I'm a senior at Saline High School, and I've been on the Science Olympiad team since, 7th grade, I think.
Hi, I'm Kira Saporsky. I'm also in 12th grade, and I've been on Science Olympiad since 2nd grade.
Hello, I'm Alice Young, and I'm a sophomore. I've been in Science Olympiad since 5th grade. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present about Science Olympiad at this meeting. So we are part of the Saline Science Olympiad team from Saline High School. So what is Science Olympiad? Science Olympiad contains 23 events with a variety that covers a variety of science topics, from earth and science, biology, chemistry, physics, and engineering. So these events mainly fall into two categories: build events and study events. Build events is where teams build a device to then bring to the competition and test. So in that photo, basically that event was bridges, and I built a bridge for that event. Study events, for example, forensics would test on content knowledge. For example, for forensics, a test could contain questions regarding about fibers and the identification of fingerprints. We have two teams at Saline High School, the yellow and blue team, with 15 students in each team. So the events during the season, during the summer, we have social events just to get everyone talking and welcoming the newcomers. For example, last season we did kayaking, picnics, and a board game. During the season, September to May, we start getting into a working rhythm and really focusing on each event, which is what we are doing right now. We also have wonderful parent mentors coming in and helping us.
Okay, so some of the most memorable events that we've had over the year is we go to various tournaments. So some of the most memorable ones was Allendale and State, which were overnights. So every year we try to do at least 2 overnight tournaments, which is basically where we just go the night before, spend the night at a hotel, and then go to the tournament the next day together. And it serves as a bonding opportunity and also just time to get to know each other on the team. And we did Allendale and States, which was at Michigan State University last year. And then we also have a new coach this year, Coach Monica. I think Coach Noth is going to say something about that at the end. And then also in many of our tournaments, especially the big ones like Solon, for example, after it's done, we all go to dinner together, which also serves as more bonding. So as you can probably tell, we have like a lot of bonding opportunities. So I think a lot of us on the team are really close friends, which is really cool. And obviously, of course, winning medals, always a plus. So last year we went to 10 different tournaments, and our top national tournaments was the U of M tournament, where we got 4th place overall, the Solon Invitational, which we got 6th place, and the Caltech Invitational, which is nationwide, where we got 14th in the nation at that tournament. And then we also got 1st place at regionals, where we beat Pioneer. I think the last time that happened was in 2016, so that was a pretty big achievement for us. And then we went to States after that, where we got 3rd place, and we also beat Pioneer there. And yeah. Yeah, so over the season we got over 200 medals, which is a lot. And we got 1st place at Hazlitt, Frankenmuth Eagle, and Allendale. So those are all pretty big achievements for us.
So last year we had our first hosted tournament. So hosting tournaments is a big thing. We see these other ones where these big teams host, like one is Solon. They're a national tournament winner. They've won top 5 in the nation, and their tournament is really good. So last year, Coach Noth and the team, we decided we were going to come together with Troy Athens High School and form and host a tournament. And last year we gathered about 24 teams from like 10 plus schools, and it was pretty successful. Since we have so many gyms, we have a lot of room and a lot of classrooms to support the big tournaments and a lot of teams. So this year is going to be our 2nd year, and we hope to host up to 48 teams. But so far we have 31 teams, which is like 15 plus schools from Michigan. Yeah. And that will be on November 19th, and we hope we could invite all of you to come that day and see what it's all about.
And where is it exactly?
It's
here?
at the high school.
It's at the high school. Okay,
Yeah.
Perfect.
You'll see all the buses there. So our future plans for the team are to advance to nationals. We've been trying year after year to get there. Last year we had 3rd in the nation, 3rd in the state, which we've gotten 2 consecutive years. And we're trying to beat our big competitors, Northview, Pioneer, and Grand Haven. And the hard thing is they're also national winners in the past. So we have big competition in the state. So we really hope we can make the nationals. We've never done that, and it'd be a really fun experience for the team if we could. In the coming years, we'd like to make varsity more collaborative in the team. It'd be a more collaborative environment. In the past, it's been good, but I think this year and the future years we could have the more experienced and upperclassmen teach the newer members to like Science Olympiad more, and so they learn more and have more good experience and just be more fun. And then we'd hope to expand the team, grow it, because we always have like 30 members, and we've seen schools like Solon that have like 70 members. And we'd like to get that big. And so with the new Science Olympiad field that you're building, it's gonna help support the team a lot and hopefully promote to other people to join. That's all from me, but I'd like Coach Noth to say a few words.
Thank you, Ryan. So Ryan alluded to the bond measure that we're all excited about, and but just a couple of words for me personally. I'd like to introduce Coach Monica to you all. But from my side personally, I'd just like to thank Saline area schools for really 16 wonderful years of being a coach here, 8 years in the high school. It was a really difficult decision to retire. although it really isn't. I will say that I'm really excited that the team is in really capable hands. I'm also excited I get to move on. I'm going to continue to help out Saoli on the state level as a member of the state board of directors now. So Saline is a big reason why I was able to make that jump up. We are a highly respected school district in the state, and the fact that I could attach my name to it was really beneficial for me. So I just want to thank everyone from Saline for all of these years. It's been a really cool experience, and really it's made me a better person. So I'd like to introduce Coach Monica, who's taking the helm effective August 31st, I think. So, or this past 31st. So I'm still going to stick around to help out with the tournament, but Coach Monica's running the show.
Thank you, guys. I can't just say how excited I am to be working with this group of students. I am already the proudest coach, and I've only been coaching for like a month. So these students are so highly motivated, and they work so well together, and they're all so polite and respectful and driven, and it's just an honor to be in their presence at all. So I'm very proud to be their coach this year.
Thank you. It really shines through. And thank you so much for all of the service to the students that you've given as well. Excellent. Questions and comments? Yeah, Candace, go ahead.
Well, just want to say thank you, Coach Nath, for your service. And I have gotten to know you outside of Saline area schools too, and your work in the city. And I just appreciate your presence and know how much passion you have for this work. So thankful to hear as well that and congratulations for the board appointment. That's excellent. And welcome to Coach Monica. And I just wanted to hear from the students who are with us. You mentioned you're seniors, so I'm curious what fields you're going into, or what you're thinking about for your next steps.
Mine's no surprise. I love the build events, which are engineering events, especially the aerospace one, preferably at Michigan. So, yeah.
I'm kind of the opposite of Ryan. I don't really deal with the build events. I'm more of a study event person. One of my favorite events is physiology, so I'd like to go into the medical field in the future.
So I don't really exactly know.
We'll give you some time.
Probably something in the field of business or science, one of the two, but definitely somewhere around there. Most seniors don't know either. It's okay.
I did have a couple. Brad did too, but do you want to go first, Brad, or me, or?
What the heck? All right, well, a couple of things from me. Number one, I teach anatomy and physiology, so a piece of my heart just like went out to you when you said that, and I appreciate it. I'm also, a piece of my heart goes out to the fact that I'm going to age myself a little bit. I'm a Troy Athens alumni, class of '97, so I am happy to see a collaboration with, you know, an OAA high-level Oakland County school. I'm sure that collaboration impacts both programs positively. Can you speak to that? Like, how has that collaboration gone, and how has that advanced both of your programs? That's the first thing, and I have a couple other things, but.
Okay, so Mr. Bear from Athens is just an amazing teacher, and you can really see his energy with his students when we interact with them. So actually the way it worked was about 2 years ago, they had a facility issue with getting to run their tournament, and we had the facility, but we really didn't have the bandwidth, and it just was a marriage made in heaven for us to talk to each other. So we agreed about 2 years ago that we would make an attempt at this. It actually worked out better than expected because, to be honest, we have an amazing community here with a lot of volunteers that just come out of the woodwork. All of the alumni come back. Athens has a lot of support, and then we get a ton of U of M students who come down to run events. So between all three groups, we can cover all 23 events, and we actually don't even have to ask many of the schools that are coming to provide volunteers. So Saline has a really good reputation for volunteerism when we go to other tournaments, so we get invited to a lot of tournaments because of that. But Athens and Saline have had a really positive relationship. We speak, right now we speak weekly, but it gets closer to daily once we get into November to set things up.
Is that via Zoom? Is that via?
Mostly Zoom.
Yeah.
We've met in person a couple of times.
And do the students collaborate with their students that way too?
During the day, last year, the captains worked together to set the tournament up, but so many alumni that wanted to be involved, we could actually, we were actually able to cover it with alumni. So,
I appreciate.
with a new coach in place, we just felt like, let's balance the work a little differently.
Right.
But yeah, it's a great collaboration, and Athens is,
right.
almost as good as Saline.
I hear you. I live here. Anyway, and I would say I wrote down rivalry is good, brings out the best in both teams. So as far as Pioneer and Saline, I think it's good for us. I want to thank you, Coach, as well, for 16 years, right, of dedication to our programs. This is not the first time you've come to visit us, and I appreciate the fact that you connect with these young people and that you leave a mark on them. And so I would say that the Science Olympiad program is fortunate to have you also as a board member. And it does speak to Saline, and it speaks to the quality of our programs, which is the last point I'll make, and then I'm going to ask you a question. So this bond here, right? This is another, in my opinion, high level performing STEAM program that is standing in our midst. And whether that's robotics at the middle school, high school level, we've had, junior science Olympiads come and see us. We are doing an outstanding job with our STEAM programs. And this bond supports them significantly. It supports them as much as we support, and I love our athletic programs, but as much as we support them too. And so for me, that's why this bond is incredibly important, along with so many other reasons. Lastly, I always ask this, what can we do for you? How can the Board of Education support your program?
I have an answer. Okay. So, from historical perspective, one of the biggest barriers to entry for students to participate is the cost. We have to do a significant amount of fundraising. The budget typically runs about $15,000 a year, and transportation is about $10,500 of that. And that doesn't include if we actually get to nationals, which would include airfare, and then so it goes up dramatically. To be honest, to be on the same competitive landscape as Northville or Grand Haven or Pioneer or Solon, we're actually better programs than them. We're better schools by a lot, but to be honest with you, what we lack is the ability to go to all of the university tournaments, which adds several $1,000s worth of cost to the programs. So if you look at like a Northville, they're going to Cornell and Princeton and UPenn and even Carnegie Mellon and MIT. Those are the top university tournaments. Gives those students exposures to those top universities. In our case, we just don't have the bandwidth financially to do that. So STEAM programs here do really well because we have a lot of really talented students and we have a lot of dedicated family members. What we lack is the like almost a STEAM fund that could help with all of these costs. And even without all of those travel expenses, the cost to do the program, if we don't fundraise adequately, can sometimes run up to $300 a student. And that has pushed students from being able to participate in the past. So behind the scenes, what the coaches have done is we have scholarships, and sometimes the coaches just donate the students' fees if we have to. So if there's a way for us to, as a community, to improve STEAM student funding, I think that would be one of the biggest things we could do.
Well, I'll say one more thing, and I will make this known. I get a stipend for being a board member. I will provide one of those scholarships from my stipend this year. Okay, so I want you to know I'm going to make that commitment to you, and that's that. So we'll figure out that later.
Coach Monica, big shoes. That's all I gotta say.
They are. He's been an incredible support, and he has done such a great job building this program and making it as competitive and as amazing as it is. So I do have big shoes to fill, for sure. To piggyback on what he said about the help that can be provided at your level, I think another thing that already Trustee Gerby mentioned was supporting the bond, which I know you all are doing, but as he mentioned, it is crucial to the program. It's something that the students would absolutely benefit from, having a better space to fly their airplanes. They don't have to fly them at 10 o'clock at night because they don't have to compete for gym space, just those kinds of, in little study rooms where they can break out. Just some of the things that you guys are considering in this bond would really help our students be able to do their work more effectively, because they are very driven to work.
Excellent.
Thank you.
I just want to say, Coach Nath, I know you're not going to deorbit and splash into the Pacific, never to be heard from again. I'm glad you're going to keep in touch with us and watch the group develop.
So I guess building on some of what has been said already, I was thinking about when Ryan was speaking about the bond and how that might impact this team in particular, along with many of our other teams. So, Monica, I think your example of how getting gym time with all of the other events and athletics that are happening, to be able to have the space to build and to fly and to do all of those things would benefit all of you. My question, which I guess you've kind of answered, but I wonder if there's something else. I know funding is prohibitive. And I'm thinking about that a little bit. I'd love to hear, in addition to fundraising, maybe not tonight, but you can even email it to us, but how are these other programs funded? What is their funding mechanism? Just kind of thinking about if they're doing fundraising, or if there's a branch of, I don't know if there's like a foundation grant or state grant. How does that work?
Some history from our side. So we've had a really good run with the foundation. There is one caveat, right? If you do a teacher grant, it has to be a teacher. So I've had a teacher sponsor me. So we've done that. We've done a building grant, and usually through that we buy like a library of supplies and stuff like that for student use. But to compare or benchmark other programs, I'd like to benchmark Solon. So the interesting thing with Solon is that Solon's outside of Cleveland. They're in a top tier high school, similar demographics to Saline. A lot of corporate companies are headquartered in the area, and they have a university presence. What I see with Solon that's different than us is there's an actual community linkage to their program. So believe it or not, at like Chamber of Commerce meetings, they've had companies come in and say, "Oh, you're the community with this elite science team that is at the national level," and it's actually won them some companies coming in, if you can believe it. So what that has done is it's resulted in a really strong partnership with the local businesses, and they have a tremendous amount of sponsorship that comes in. And then the other avenue is they run a really large tournament that has on the order of about 72 teams typically, and that's a big cash infusion for them. So as Saline's tournament grows, that should help with some of the funding. But to be honest, I think we could use a partnership with a more consistent partnership with local businesses and local bigger companies.
So I know we're giving you an opportunity to kind of pitch that here tonight, but if we can help support, making connections with city organizations, like you mentioned, the Chamber or Rotary or something like that, we have connections with some of those organizations, so perhaps we can support you in that way, and at least making the connection, and then, from there you can share some of the things that have helped the community around Solon. The other thing besides funding, is there anything is there anything that we can do to support your quest for nationals this year? What would you need to push past and make that dream a reality?
Well, I'd first like to start about the gym times. It's for the build events, that's where we test. And so having to go at like 10 o'clock on a Sunday, it's hard. And since there's the air eyes on, sometimes with the flight time, it's limited. And so I have to make sure that I'm getting the most out of my time. So having that more available, I know it's hard, but having that it'll give us a lot more flexibility and more time to test for the build events.
Any other questions or comments? I just wanted to, oh yeah, Allison, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, outside of the obvious scientific skills, I was just wondering what specifically Science Olympiad has taught you, either as a student or just a person or a friend, etc.
Okay, so one thing I would say is when I joined Saline schools, I was in 9th grade, and I didn't know anyone here, like everyone was already friends and stuff. And through the Science Olympiad team, I got to know a lot of great people, like for example, Josie Kane. She was a senior last year, and so she left, but I got to know her along with a lot of other people on the team that I made good friendships with. I would say that is one thing that Saline has taught me, or Science Olympiad has taught me, and that also helps because now I know, like, when new freshmen are coming onto the team, how I can help maybe make them feel more comfortable, especially in this like competition environment and stuff. So I think that's something good.
Excellent. Go ahead.
Another thing I would like to add is like Science Olympiad, definitely you get to make more friends, and some of them are lifelong, companions. But Science Olympiad provides a lot of leadership opportunities, and for each event, which also helps boost leadership skills. One important life lesson I learned is that though it is important to like push yourself and try for for your goals, it is also important to know that you can also ask for help and that you have your team members backing you up.
It's good insight for a sophomore, especially. I love that. Good for you. Any other comments? No. Thank you so much. I really liked that you said Saline is known for volunteerism. I really think so too, across all of our organizations. So that you hear that, I really appreciate that, as evidenced with Monica now here, volunteering as well. So good luck to you in growing. Good luck to you on the 19th at Saline High School. So we'll have to note that on our board activities calendar. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please do consider coming
Yeah.
because usually board members and administrators hand out the trophies ceremony. So just saying.
November 19th. Yep.
5 p.m.
What day of the week is that?
That's a Saturday.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our first discussion item, Finance Committee meeting update. Chair Brad Gerby.
All right, so finance meeting met today, and we had a couple things that were on our agenda, and I should tell you that one of them is very much a work in progress. But for the benefit of the team, I will tell you that this past Wednesday was count day, so we looked at our initial count numbers. Now, there is a lot of ways in which this still has to be worked out. FTEs and figuring out, those types of things. But I guess what I think the team needs to hear from the finance team is that our enrollment is trending better than we forecasted. And so that's a positive thing for our finances, right? So as far as our finance projections go, that should put us on good terms, on good track, all of that, as long as things stay together with foundation allowances and that kind of thing. So from me to you, I'm pleased about that. Again, still figuring out the specifics, and we need time and space to do that. We will eventually be able to give the board an FTE number that's a little more solid, probably more towards the end of the year, but trending in a good direction. So there's that. Middle school renovation, right? We're all excited about this. The middle school is ready to go. It's ready to be unveiled. We've been hearing about students, and people have been walking by and sticking their eyes in there, and we got pictures, a little bit of a rendering on Facebook, and that made me jealous. But long story short, we're gonna have a ribbon cutting October 27th, 1 p.m. So that's October 27th. 1 p.m. We'll unveil that facility, and thankful to the voters for that, right? The bond of 2015 makes these types of things possible and make us leaders. And that's why I hope that this next bond will continue to do those kinds of things and provide these kinds of opportunities for our students, because these are going to be tremendous educational facilities for our kids. So that is that. And then the third thing we talked about was we talked a little bit about some athletic budget items. So, expenses versus revenues, that kind of thing, right? And just looking at some of those various things and what have you. And we haven't really visited that very much in the 2 years I've been on the board. And so we thought that would be a good thing to visit and to talk about in a future presentation, but we need time. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not just general funds, it's student activity accounts, it's all kinds of things from a budget standpoint. And then there's just people involved in all of that. So long story short, you should anticipate that sometime end of the year, early next year, we plan to make a formal presentation to the board where we cover some of those various things. But I will say this. We have incredible facilities. We have incredible coaches. We have incredible people who do great work in our athletics. And I think we get a tremendous return for our athletic dollars and for all of our dollars, whether it's in the classroom or in athletics. But in this specific area that we were talking about, I'm proud of us. So that was what we talked about. We did a little bit of talking about, budgeting, but that's basics of it. So if anybody has any questions, let me know.
All right. Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Candace, for coming tonight as well for the team. Moving on to our second discussion item, policy committee update. Chair Vice President Michael McVeigh.
Right, and speaking of facilities, we have a one policy that I'd like to provide an update on, and let me look ahead. I'm not sure if that was going to be, this is just for information only and discussion. So if Brian Puffer could come up. It's policy 7510, use of district facilities. And I appreciate that you're able to spend a little bit of time. He took scissors, paper, and glue and all sorts of things to this policy, and but it looks quite complicated, but it's pretty clear actually. But I'll let you explain it to us, please.
Yeah. So back in June, I believe, is when we came in presented the rates for our rental increases for community education in the district, and you guys approved those. And so we went through the policy manual for the use of district facilities and just basically matched up our new reclassifications and how we handle facility reservations and whatnot to mirror what those rates were, basically. So when you went through there, you'll see a lot. Things where you said permit, now we call it request, because from our old system, they were called permits, and it was done a lot differently. So just really quick, everything's online for our registration system through a program called Elio, where people submit everything online, and then it's approved by us, and they received their official building permit then. And so most of that language is for that. And everything else, like I said, that you could see that was changed in there. I'm not sure what you have, but all I have is the red changes. It was just to line up basically what our new rates were and our new classifications are.
I appreciate that. One of the issues, we're trying to keep this whole policy evergreen, and by mentioning the name of the actual company, we took that out so that if we changed companies, we wouldn't have to change policy.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Great. So I'll open it up for questions for Mr. Puffer. Well, I guess you were so articulate and clear.
I just appreciate the collaboration, right? I mean, a lot of times we lean on a lot of staff as the subject matter experts in certain areas in our district, so appreciate the collaboration.
I think this policy update is going to go straight into the consent agenda at the next meeting, I believe. So thank you.
All right.
Oh.
Just a quick thing. I noticed that the invoice payment timeline shifted from 30 days to 15 days. Was that just due to late payments being an issue, or just curious
It has
about
been,
that?
but I'll tell you, with this new system we have, before this system, you were not billed online. It was basically sending out invoice in mail. Now you get it instantly, so we figured with the 15 days. And people have been pretty responsive because they're happy they can just go online and pay it. Where in the past, they have to send us a check, and it was very archaic. So that's why we brought it down to the 15 days. But we work with groups. If they can't, if it's too quick of a turnaround, we'll extend it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Not about this. Well, thank you for bringing this policy kicking and screaming into the 21st century.
No problem. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I know you have a lot going on, so don't feel that you have to stay if you have things going on. Moving on to our only scheduled report.
Is there a possibility? What is the process? Can I circle back to my report just for a moment?
Sure.
Possible? I have one other item that I think is of importance for the board to hear, and that is about enrollment trends. As far as when we look at our enrollment K-9, we were seeing, I want to speak to this idea, we saw growth in every single one of our classes from K through 9, okay? And so what that will speak to is this idea of birth rates and all of that kind of thing, but it also gives me, as the finance chair and as somebody who's watching count, it gives me a lot of comfort to know that we're going to have a stable, I would predict that we'll have a stability of enrollment that will happen in the next few years. And that's really going to help us as we start to look at structures, right? We start to look at staffing models, start looking at those kinds of things. And so I think it's really important that we take a look at that and say that, you know, as far as our K-9 numbers go, when we get to there in about 3 to 4 more years, we're not going to see some of these downward trends that are county-wide. And anyway, so I thought that was important for the district or for you guys all to hear. So thank you for letting me circle back.
All right. Now moving on to our only scheduled report, bond proposal supporting the future of Saline area school students in a fiscally responsible manner. I love that title. Dr. Lodge.
Have learned to bring my laptop up here because as that small print goes over there, I do struggle with the actually being able to read the presentation. So thank you for the opportunity to present again about the bond proposal. We've talked a lot about it so far. This is just me tonight giving a deeper dive into school spending, finance reform, and how bonds in general are such a big part of the structure of school funding today. And I just want to make sure that the board is very aware of how that's played out over time in the Saline schools. So we're starting with what I really strongly believe is a very responsible plan, one with a proven track record. And when I say what proven track record, what does that mean? When we look back at previous bond proposals, what we say is going to happen in those bond proposals is what we're delivering. And I think that's important that the public has confidence to know that whenever a bond proposal is submitted to Treasury and you work with various groups to get it set up and approved, you have to line item what you're going to actually be purchasing and building. You can't. There's very little wiggle room to deviate from that. So what we have been talking to the public about as to what's in this bond proposal is what would be delivered if it were passed. So this is a slide we talk often about, that we are making certain that we're communicating about the bond proposal. We are also making certain that we are communicating about how to get registered to vote. And that also includes some of our high school students that are now eligible to vote. And we have been working on spreading the word for that. So now I'm going to dive in a little deeper to finance reform, actually. Oh. It's a valid point. Okay, so here's how we'll do this. I'll stop the clicker. You all advance as I advance. That's good. But you can see I could, when we get to, so next one. Okay, right there. That's where I am too. Yeah, that's a little too hard for me to read. At any rate, so we're going to talk a little bit about Proposal A. And I want to go back because schools operated differently prior to 1994, and I just wanted to sort of go back and go through this history. So pre-1994, schools were funded primarily through local property tax, where Saline residents, in theory, could say, well, we actually want to have X dollar amount be the per pupil funding mechanism. Like currently, the $9,100, or $9,150, which is the per pupil expenditure, is not controlled by Saline area residents. It is controlled by, MDE and Lansing, because the money filters back through Lansing and then is redistributed. But pre-1994, a school district could say, well, we actually want to fund and make the per pupil expenditure $13,000 a student. And it was a method of school districts being able to control funding and to be able to potentially do larger projects that you might include in a bond. And, it showed that school districts and tax voters had some level of control on how much money they could bring to fund schools, but not tons. And the reason why the funding mechanism moved away from this local property tax was because it was deemed inequitable. And that does make some sense, because what was happening in some districts is, let's just take a district who had home values where, most of the homes in the school district were $100,000, for example. Well, they could tax residents at a really high rate and still not bring in a lot of revenue for schools. And so by taking tax revenue, filtering it back to Lansing and then redistributed was certainly deemed as a more equitable way of funding. And that has been the mechanism of funding post-1994, which is called Proposal A. And that's the idea that property tax flows back through Lansing and then is redistributed back to local districts. And it does provide a more equitable distribution of funds. But it certainly means that we have less local control, and that school districts primarily have been saying, okay, well, what's another way that we could control funding to improve our schools? And school bonds have been a normal cycle of funding. And Saline Area Schools has had a number of bond proposals passed that have greatly enhanced the school experience for our students and have made our facilities what they are today. And I don't know about you, but I experience a fair amount of people that come into the district from other school districts and comment often about the facilities are excellent, great upkeep, facilities that are 20 years old look new. That's because of our responsible funding path with bonds, and because of the great work ethic of our staff to keep the facility up along with our community. Okay, next slide, please. So our current school funding, the other way that we fund schools is our general fund. And so some people ask, well, what's your general fund annual budget? It's $65 million, approximately. Miranda always makes sure approximately $65 million. But a really important point is 83% of the budget supports the instructional program in salary and benefits. A $9,150 is our per pupil allowance. That is a $400 increase from the previous year, and we're grateful. That is certainly a nice bump. But as Miranda and I spoke about this past week, that increase that now lands us at 9150 has not been keeping up with inflation, the rate of inflation at all. And there's been studies to show that, if it was keeping up with the rate of inflation, it would be way higher at this point. So therefore, we look at this general fund of $65 million annual budget, and we are trying to couple it with bond proposals so that we don't have to touch this general fund to repair roofs, enhance the middle school gym, a new boiler at the middle school, new parking lots, you name it, and new instructional technology. So the idea is keep the funds in the general fund for the instructional program, for primarily the instructional program, and then do repairs and improvements through bonding. And that's been our approach, and it continues to be that. So if we go to the next slide, you've seen this slide before, but we're going to touch on it again. So in 2000, the plan was we knew we needed an additional elementary school, and we wanted to, build a new high school. We accomplished that along with the addition of the band and choir room at Heritage Elementary School. So all those things were accomplished in Bond 2000. You fast forward to 2015. This is where we said, okay, we need new roofs. This is a heating and cooling, a safety bond. We were making sure that all of those things have been happening, and we're finishing up phase 3 of this bond now with the Trustee Gerby mentioned it, with the ribbon cutting of the new gym at Saline Middle School. And that also was the boiler project as well as we finish those up. So very important to the trajectory of the school district. So we go to the next slide. I think this one's a really important one because this analogy, most people tend to understand this, that the district has worked with this idea that we want regular oil changes in our car and not the engine rebuild all at once. Because when you let things go for a certain period of time, you're hit with a lot of significant expenses all at once. And so we've made sure over the years to avoid that, and the community has supported that by approving bond proposals that they deem as necessary, that we deem as necessary in a good, fiscally responsible manner. And so we talk about these four boxes. The strategy remains unchanged. We're focused on building for the future. We're using incremental measures to do that. And we want to take care of our investment. The community wants us to take care of our investment, and we want to do that as well. This is how we can do that together. If we go to the next slide, I do want to make sure people are clear about how we landed at $180 million for this bond proposal. It's focused around these bullet points on the left side. We did the needs assessment at the beginning, and we identified $300 million in needs. And the needs assessment, more or less, is our company walks around. In this case, it was King Scott going around and interviewing people, looking at all our facilities, knowing what the landscape looks like in other school districts, and said, these are $300 million in needs that you will want to consider with your bond. So then we took that forward and we said, okay, what are focus groups that we know? Who are the focus groups? Who are the people that need to be helping us make some of these decisions? And we met with a STEAM group. We heard them present tonight and they gave us input. And then we met with a number of different groups, administrators, parent groups in the community, the seniors at the senior center, and we received a lot of different input. Then we also did the EPIC Mra Survey, which is basically it's an investment in learning what your community will support. They make all their phone calls. They connect with 450 people that gave them input on what they would support and what they would not support. And after that survey, we revised the scope. And that's where we did drop things that were in the original proposal or in the original $300 million in needs, like a potential field house. That we also looked at an early childhood center. And even though that would be value added to have in the district, we weren't ready to move forward with something like that. And so this is how it got pared back down to $180 million. In addition, we're factoring in these rising costs. And so we're seeing it everywhere with everything we're doing now. $225 a square foot in 2015 for construction costs now is trending upwards to $500 a square foot in 2022 for construction costs. Now, there's not only construction costs in this bond, but I mean, if we just look at what we're seeing everywhere in the community, you go out to eat, it costs more. Grocery store, your bills are higher. We know that, and so therefore the $180 million, although certainly a big number, we feel very comfortable that that is what we need to move forward with for this bond proposal. The other thing we factored into this was that we know residents are paying more for various city services, and we want to make sure that that was factored in. And so therefore, we arrived at the $180 million bond proposal, which still allowed us to reduce it by 0.5 mils and would allow the tax rate to come down. And we think that's a tremendous value. People ask, well, how do you possibly bring the rate down when you're trying to, when you have a big number like that? And it's really based around that the taxable value in Saline is higher now, and we have enough retiring debt that it comes together and still allows us to do this bond proposal at a 0.5 mil reduction, which again we think is tremendous value and a real fiscally responsible method. So if we go to the next slide, what if it doesn't pass? People do ask, well, what if it doesn't pass? What happens here? Well, important student needs would need to be put on hold. And when basic needs, like what we consider basic needs now, technology improvements, Jay Grossman, our great tech director, who's back here somewhere, talks to us about how we have more devices in the district than ever before. Well, what does that mean? It means more maintenance, more replacement, all of that, because we want our students to have access to great technology. Safety improvements, we're working on that now to continue to make our buildings and our grounds safer. When we need new roofs, what about parking lot repairs? When these things arrive, we know we need to do them. So the question is, where's that money coming from? I know that the vast majority of our residents don't want us to take it out of the general fund, because that could say, well, is that coming out of teaching programs? Where is that coming from? When 83% is based on instruction already in the general fund, there's only that's the largest pot of money. So something would have to give. And so if we say, okay, it doesn't pass, and then we move forward and we have to come back to the community next year, the following year, 3 years down the road, that's going to feel to be a real significant tax increase that we would be asking for at that point. And we just don't think that's actually a fiscally responsible way to move forward with the district, for our next steps. If we go to the next slide, I also wanted to focus in on specifics in this grant proposal and some more details about some slides that you've seen before, but I wanted to go into a little more detail. When we talk about inclusive playgrounds, we already experienced a wonderful ribbon cutting of inclusive playground space at Pleasant Ridge. We really want that opportunity for all our students. For kids that are in wheelchairs or use walkers or have other mobility issues, that they are able to play along with their peers is really important to us. This would set the stage for that. When we talk about STEAM, and we heard from our wonderful Science Olympiad students from the high school tonight and their coaches, these programs are tripling in size. I was on a Zoom call the other night with John and Lisa from the middle school who run their Science Olympiad program, and then with Chris Myers, who runs First Robotics as a parent volunteer for the elementary level. These programs are tripling in size. We really do need space for the kids. Some of our brightest kids that really want just an opportunity to not only expand, but achieve at an even higher level. And we heard them tonight talking about some of their goals are, we want to get to nationals. We want to move forward. And so, that's exciting. We feel obligated to provide them with spaces to do those kinds of things, along with just our, science teachers and art teachers that could use these spaces at other times throughout the day. So we're excited about that opportunity. When we talk about strength and conditioning, we've talked a lot about how we have a crumbling facility at the high school right now that is used throughout the day for our fitness classes and our PE classes, and we do need to move that facility. So whether it's we find another space within the existing high school, sure, we could potentially try to do that, but we need a new space anyway. This bond's a perfect time to address it. We also will be considering, as we move forward with the design, that how do we make this more equitable for our students? There's various machines you can do that help decrease the way weights are lifted and would provide for, again, more equitable opportunities when the students are in PE class and they're using this fitness center. So we're excited about that possibility. We've also talked about the operations center. If the transportation center were to move off of the middle school grounds into another spot, we would be able to decrease the traffic pattern, which we know is a big problem around Woodland and Maple Drive. And then as we try to move towards this more environmental friendly busing model, not only could we be using solar power to charge our buses, but as we potentially move to potentially not needing gas in the future for some of our buses, we feel like we need a more modern transportation center to provide for that, because our goal is to provide the safest bus fleet possible, and we certainly need to keep working on that. I did want to also point out, and I put a fourth bullet point down there, that improvements over the years that we've already made are saving the district money. More efficient heating and cooling, LED lighting that we've done now and replaced in all the buildings is really a key, and environmental friendly busing would be another step in the right direction for that. When we go to the next step in technology for the future, I already more or less addressed this in that we have to keep devices being replaced, and our infrastructure includes servers, more network maintenance, and with more devices than ever before, we have to have a regular stream of funding to be able to handle that. And now I want to do a flashback, because people often ask, well, you say we protect our investments, and actually, what do we mean by that? And I think this was just a really good example. So when we constructed the Saline High School auditorium, it was built not only with the mindset of we're going to provide our students with first-class opportunities for performances during the day and the evening with our music programs and drama and theater, but also for the community to use for rentals. And so you partner together with community education, and voila, Rebecca Grebe-Driscoll, who is our theater manager, runs everything, helps to be able to more or less stay self-funded by, even in this past year, in a COVID year where a lot of places weren't renting out facilities, is bringing in over $100,000 to support community ed programming. So I just think this is a smart plan that we did back, almost 20 years ago, and it's still paying dividends in a smart financial manner for the district, so that we're able to fund positions and offset those costs. We look at the middle school complex that would be outside of Liberty and between Liberty and the middle school, and we look at our current tracks not safe for events right now. We have tennis courts that are crumbling, and wouldn't it be great to have this walking path that connects the entire facility, because we see people walking. The community uses the Crabtree Field track now to walk often, and connect this to be a more community friendly space. And then it also would be able to, we could be hosting tournaments, we could be bringing in additional revenue to support community education. And again, still support the community and our students, but also be smart fiscally to raise revenue in spots that make sense. And then finally, our senior center, and we've been visiting quite often to our senior center to make sure that our seniors do know what this would mean for the senior center. And it would be a new fitness center for the wellness facility, more or less, for the actual senior center, along with some renovations. And then we would bring our cosmetology program in there, which would be outstanding. And then it would be a STEAM center inside that space for the middle school. We're already doing great things with our senior center. It's a great connection where we have pen pal writing and various celebrations that exist between Saline Senior Center members and the actual buildings and our students. So we're very pleased at that arrangement already. And then here's just some latest pictures on how we have been communicating about the bond. We had a local business breakfast the other day. We were visiting at Brecken Village. We were at the Seniors Healthcare Fair where they were immunization was going on and visiting various health programs, and then at the Hornet football game the other day. So we continue to work on communicating out the important message, that important vote on November 8th. And then again, just want to close with, this is a tax decrease in the tax rate. You could argue, well, is it significant? It's a tax decrease, and we just made sure that we were being fiscally responsible and not asking for a flat proposal or even an increase, but it's a decrease. And again, responsible track record. Questions?
So first of all, thank you. Ballot language around bonds is so layered and confusing. So I really appreciate this presentation, and I'm assuming that it's going to be made available for the public to access somewhere. That's great. I wanted to just pause and stand still by three things that really were impactful that you said that I made notes on. So I just want to make sure that everyone hears this. So the first thing is, going back to the preamble about the last bond, the safe, warm, and dry, I thought that the district were incredible stewards for those important capital projects, particularly around safety and infrastructure. I do think that our district delivered what we said we were going to deliver, and we were responsible and very accurate. So thank you very much. Number two, I really like that slide. If you can go to the proposal A, the pre-1994 and post-1994. This is really, really important because bonds are really a prudent instrument to utilize for districts who need to stay ahead of important capital projects. And this is why. So I really appreciate that. And if you want to go to the general fund slide, that's it, yeah. Incredibly important as well. I highlighted that as a third bullet that I really took away. This protects our staff. So the passing of this bond protects our staff, that we're not using a general fund for major upkeeps or improvements, and we're protecting that and keeping that to the side, and we're keeping that in instructional programming. I think that that's incredibly important. I think that the really responsible thing to do is to be future focused like we say we're going to be. To pass the bond, and to put the money into infrastructure and learning, and the students and staff have my absolute support. So, absolutely. So appreciate this presentation. Yeah, Johnny.
I just wanted to, and if I may, clarify just one piece. When you say it protects our staff, what that means is that class sizes stay at a reasonable level. When staff are impacted, that means that there are fewer staff to support that. So when we protect our staff, what we're really saying is that we are allowing for students to be in classes that are at a reasonable size and conducive for learning. It also means that we have more offerings for electives at the high school. It means that we can provide programs at the elementary level for special areas, all of those pieces. So although it does protect our staff, and we know that we are huge advocates for that, by protecting our staff, we are maintaining programs and the highest level of learning opportunity for our students. A couple of other things that I just wanted to touch on. I really appreciate that you mentioned the heating and cooling and the LED lights and some of those projects, because while we needed the bond money to support the changing of the lights, for example, and I was in a classroom when that happened, they came in and did that work. And we knew that it was a cost up front from the bond, but we also knew that moving forward it was going to be a cost savings. So it was the investment that was going to have savings down the road because it was going to cost less to operate. So I appreciate that piece. I was also thinking about Rebecca Grieb-Driscoll. We use the theater quite a bit in our family with a variety of things that my children participate in. And Rebecca does a wonderful job. And I just want to point out that it's beyond the Saline community that utilizes that facility. There are, I know because we're in the dance community in our family, that there are dance studios from Ann Arbor who use that facility, and there are dance studios from Plymouth Canton area who are driving 30, 45 minutes to come to our facility because of its size, because of its professional, the way that Rebecca runs it, and because of the lighting and the stage. All of those things that have been an investment in that facility are generating revenue, but also really boasting the facilities to a larger, broader area. It's really benchmarking for other places. So 2 last things that I wanted to say. We talked about accessibility in the playgrounds, and I think that that's incredibly important. I've had an opportunity now to see the Pleasant Ridge playground and the new playground at the WISD. I'm blanking on the name of the school.
High Point.
High Point, thank you. Both providing opportunities for students that don't exist right now. There are ways now for students to participate in every aspect of that playground, which is really inclusive and really honors each of our students. So I am really excited about that. I was also really moved by the student who said that he can't get gym time until 10 o'clock at night. So while we do have a number of gyms, and they talked about how we can host these tournaments because we have these spaces, we can host it on that day because they reserve the spaces, but on a day-to-day basis when they're trying to compete nationally and they're having to have a gym time at 10 o'clock, that's not conducive to the high level of academics that we know that these kids are participating in also. And so not only is it difficult for them to get the gym time, but then it's also at an expense for their sleep and their studying and all of those things. So last thing, the thing that that is right up there at one of the top, I think, 5 things that I love about this bond is the inclusion of our seniors at the senior center. And when this bond was brand new, David told me that I could participate in activities at the senior center now at my age, which I didn't really want to hear, but I'm glad to hear that. So maybe when my kids and my job don't have such a pull on my time, I will look into that. But I do think that it's really community focused. So while we're really always leading with students in mind first, it's really wonderful for us to think about our community as a whole, and we're thinking about that through our senior center, through the reduction of the mills, and through a variety of connections through community ed and just a lot of foresight. So when I see that connection with the senior centers, it just reminds me that our school is not here in isolation, but we are a large part of a community at large. And that to me is really echoed in this bond. So thank you for your work.
Thanks. So I see this through a financial lens a lot, right? And I think about $65 million. So I love that this slide is up here right now. And I think about this, we want to be competitive for talent, right? We want to be, and so what does that mean? Well, that means that our costs have increased, and our costs will probably continue to increase in order to be competitive for salaries and benefits and those kinds of things. And I want the best people teaching our students and in our classrooms and on our athletic fields and all of that. And so when I hear about protecting and doing that kind of thing, I think about protecting our students in that regard, because now our 83% is maintained. And so now when we get a $400 increase, 83% of that goes towards those types of things, which bring in and maintain our staff. And so for me, like, that equals I agree, it equals high level programming. And then I think about count. You heard me talk about count earlier. Count matters, and FTEs matter. And so I think about, you know, being competitive for families and being a destination district and people wanting to move here. I'm seeing new homes being built in Andalina Farms and out on Willis Road. And I want these to be places where people can move their family and can know we're going to Saline because those schools are high-level, high-performing schools with incredible educators, incredible facilities, and this bond helps us to do that. So it makes us competitive for the things we need to do to be able to run our school district. And so for me, like, from a finance standpoint, I see it through that. And I love what you said also about just the community focus, about being just competitive and offering value to our community. Thank you for pointing those things out. It's what stewards, you know, we have been, and that speaks a lot to our leadership teams and to our staff and our people who have done those things. So anyway, so I from a financial standpoint, this makes us competitive.
Okay.
I was just going to say, first and foremost, I was very excited to hear about the potential for more environmental decisions in the future. I've always been a bit of a tree hugger, admittedly, and so just hearing that was nice to hear. And I think in the future, if we're thinking future focus, I think thinking of the future of the planet is also a really cool thing to do. If we can incorporate like compost bins and the electric buses and everything like that, I think it's just something that really excites me personally. Yeah. And second, I just wanted to ask if you do know if there's anything, I know with the bond, again, we're future focused, and this is thinking like potentially years in the future, but if there's anything of like crisis level, like what is the first thing you would want to do if the bond was passed?
Well, there's actually 3 series in the bond where you would prioritize what's going to happen first, second, and third. And so we tried to look at it from the lens of what would be the most impactful student moves we could make. So, you know, you look at the inclusive playgrounds, for example, we say, okay, that's going to directly impact kids quickly. That would be more into the front end of the bond. But then the other issue with some of this is some of it's a domino effect. You can't really do anything with the senior center in this bond unless you move out the transportation center, which also means we have to properly secure a property in another location. So there are some domino moves like that. But we're trying to look at what happens in Series 1. What would impact students the most first? Because obviously there's planning involved, and it does, you know, it's still going to be a year or 2 out before you're actually getting to the construction elements per se after the planning phases. So that's sort of a vague answer, Allison. A good question, but yeah, okay. Anyway.
Any other questions or comments for Steve?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll let him get settled back here, and we'll move forward with our 2 action items of the evening. I'd like to please entertain a motion to accept the technology purchase package proposal for the new theater projector by TLS Production in the amount of $61,831.30 as submitted by Jay Grossman, Director of Technology.
So moved. Miller?
Jenny, thank
Support
you.
McKay.
Michael, second, thank you. Any discussion? Questions? All right. Easiest thing in the night. Seeing none, moving to vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 6-0. Moving on to action item number 2, I'd like to please entertain a motion and move to approve the minutes from the September 13th, 2022 closed session for the purpose of discussions under Section 8F and 8K of the Open Meetings Act.
So moved. McVeigh.
Michael, thank you.
Support Gerby.
Brad, thank you. If we can have Secretary Jones pass out the minutes, that would be great. Just to refresh everyone's memory, with closed meeting minutes, we pass these out to the trustees. These are numbered. We read. We pass them back to Candace. She confirms collection. If passed, one sealed copy goes to Betty that stays in her file. Yep. And for this one, Trustee Miller was absent for closed session. Of course, as a trustee, she is reading the minutes for her own information.
Yes, since I wasn't in the meeting though, I will read them, but I'll abstain from the vote.
Yep, sounds good. All right, we'll take a minute to read. All right, we'll hand them back to Candace whenever you're ready. All right, she'll confirm she has the copies. All right, all those in favor of passing, please say aye. Aye. Nay? Abstain. All right, motion carries by 5, 0 nay, 1 abstention. Moving on to administration and board updates, Dr. Latch.
Yep, I have 3 brief updates. I want to point out that Kara Davis and Shannon Washington led some excellent PD at our first early release day, and will continue to do so at our next early release day later in October. And our focus is really in the area of looking at our data, our test scores and other areas, and looking at it from a lens of equity. We see some disproportionality playing out with some groups of students, and we want to address that. And we really want to also dive into some focus areas around math and science data that we want to see improved. I think it's important to note that we've always been a district that strives for improvement in all our areas, and we'll continue to do so, and that's our focus with our PD lens for this year. Second, we've been going around our central admin team to the buildings and having coffee and conversations. We did that last week, and we're finishing those up this week, and we really feel just a great vibe in the buildings right now, in that staff's happy to be there, students are happy to be there, the community's happy with just feeling like we're back to I guess I'd say a regular cadence of school right now. It feels good, and we're just really pleased with what we're seeing. And then we're also trying to listen to what our staff has to say on things we can do to better support them and the students. And then finally, we have a Foundation for Saline Area Schools kickoff luncheon on Thursday at noon that I'll be at, and looking forward to continue with our great partnership with FSAS. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Allison?
Well, if we're on the subject of calling out Dr. Washington, she had the honor of, or she honored us by visiting our race and ethnicity class last week, which was a really informative and great presentation, so thank you again for that. The juniors are taking the PSAT tomorrow, which I am not envious of their position, but I wish them luck nonetheless. We are reaching the end of our Hispanic Heritage Month, so just something to keep your eye out for. At the end of the month, on October 27th, we have a blood drive all day on, I already said October 27th, at the Saline High School. One of our informative signs that a pint of blood can save 3 lives. It's extremely important to donate blood. It's a really great way to help your community, and we will bribe you with juice and cookies afterwards if you are so inclined. Our fall break is next week, so we have an early release on October 20th, and there's no school on October 21st, so I hope everyone has a very relaxing break. Once again, if we haven't been pushing it enough, the election is on November 8th. There's the bond on the ballot, again, in case we haven't told you enough. And the Chad Tough Run was on October 1st, and that went super great. So thank you for anyone who participated.
Awesome. Thanks, Allison. Was the blood drive October 27th?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Any updates from trustees?
Yep. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Jenny, then Michael.
I was just going to share an update from the DEIAC, and if Secretary Jones has anything, that would be great also. I was just going to let the board and our community know that we have had some transition on the DEIAC, which typically happens. We like to see a 2-year commitment so that we can keep some continuity and keep moving forward with our 3-year plan. But we also know that life events happen, and we have some members who have had to use their time and resources in other places. So with that, we were able to consider new members, and we're continuing that process. Hopefully we will have those members respond to their invitations soon, and we'll be able to move forward with our new team. We also, in our last meeting, looked back at our binder, which is much of the information that is included in that binder is also on the website for the community to see. But it was helpful for us to look at that. And as Dr. Lotch mentioned, the work that Kara Davis and Shannon Washington have done with data was a part of that conversation, and will be something that we consider in our work. And in addition to some other manuals, other manual updates, such as a roster and a way to contact one another. So as we continue forward with this board-appointed committee, we are, expanding some of our tools and resources. There is also, everyone can be watching, we are starting to plan for an upcoming community event that just allows for the community to see a little bit more of the work that the DEIAC is doing in our schools and in our community at large. And lastly, I just want to give, and I'm sure potentially other schools are doing this too, but it was shared with us, the way that the Woodland Meadows Equity Team is sharing resources for their classroom teachers to support, for example, this month, Hispanic Heritage Month, and they are really being supportive. Like, for example, they had, like, what does it mean to be Latinx versus Hispanic, like just some terms and some education that can happen that can allow us to be more inclusive and can allow for teachers to find the resources to be to support the teaching that's happening in the classroom. So there were things like read-alouds that were available by video, or just suggestions for teachers to support, for example, Hispanic Heritage Month. So I just really want to applaud them for that resource. I think it's a tool that is going to be I'm sure has been extremely helpful to classroom teachers, and could be, again, something for others to benchmark. I know I was looking at it as a member of our equity team where I work. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Woodland Meadows and their equity team, and congratulate them on that resource.
Sure. Allison, in the mail this week, I received my 9-gallon pin. So I'm looking forward to the 27th, you said? All right. Thank you. Last Monday, I attended the legislative priority setting meeting for MASB members on behalf of us. And I was just doing the count. Now I took a photograph of the attendees, and there were 16 from Washtenaw County, and which was pretty good. We got together to try to brainstorm ideas for the next legislative session. A lot of those were moving forward, the ones that we tried last time that didn't get much traction. A lot of it is regarding bandwidth and that sort of thing, and access across the the county. Also, we are quite concerned about getting legislation to support mental health efforts that are going on across the districts. Last Thursday, I met with other school board reps across the county as part of the Washtenaw Association of School Boards. I'm the past president, so I get the honor of joining them for their planning sessions. We set the calendar, had some tentative plans, and I'm also leading an ad hoc group to revise the bylaws. But one of the big projects that got put on hold that I talked about last night was a countywide youth forum It got put on hold because of the pandemic. It's a way that we can bring together youth voices for people like Allison and Ari and people that we all know and love here, where we can hear their voices in one place. And our job as trustees in joining them would be to help them to frame their action plans and help them with that, and also to publicize when they go back to our home districts their efforts. And so far, as of this afternoon, I've got the commitment for Ypsilanti, Lincoln, and Milan to join on with that, and I'm sure the others will follow soon. And I had completely forgotten about it until a young member of our community brought it up last night. I also want to say thank you to the Saline Area Senior Center for hosting the meet and greet for all the candidates yesterday, and the Saline Parents Against Racism and Saline Supports Our Community for hosting a wonderful candidate forum. We did not know the questions. If anyone asked, they were throwing heat, and I think all of us did pretty well. They had city council folks as well as school board candidates, most of the school board candidates up. So thank you. That is all I have to add.
All right. Well, I missed our last meeting. I was in Egypt and was able to bring the compass with me, the compass flag. So took a picture in front of the Great Pyramids of Giza and also the Sphinx. So that was exciting, and brought it back. So now President Stedman can take it to another country.
Flag, not the Sphinx.
Right, right. Yes, not this time. And then last week, right, that would be a little heavy. Last week I had the opportunity to participate in the Wellness Committee meeting, and excited about what's happening there. That was our first meeting of this school year, and we talked about the Trusted Adult Survey, which you all may remember. The committee leads came and presented about the results of that survey last year. That will be administered again, and we talked about strategies to increase participation in the survey, because that was one challenge. It was put out in a short time frame, so we needed to get feedback pretty quickly and didn't have as high of a response rate as we would like to. So talked about that, talked about some subcommittees that will be formed as part of the Wellness Committee to really focus on not only student wellness, but staff wellness as well. So talked about some events and things to help support staff and student wellness. So excited about that committee. Next meeting will be in January. Yeah.
Any other comments or updates? All right, great. Moving on to our consent agenda, the following are offered as part of the consent agenda. The motion noted will allow for their authorization of all listed items without discussion unless a member of the board requests that any one or all be considered individually. These items will not be read aloud, but will continue to be listed out individually in the minutes for this meeting. I would like to please entertain a motion to authorize the listed items as part of our consent agenda.
Motion made, Miller.
Jenny, thank you.
Brad and I are like, who's
Support
going to do
Kirby.
it?
Don't fight over it. No, you can. Brad, second. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 6-0. Items on our next agenda, Dr. Latch.
Yeah, we're going to have an outstanding special education department update, and we will have another bond proposal update.
All right, sounds good. We will also be doing a closed session for annual superintendent evaluation on the 25th of October. We wanted to specifically do this so Secretary Jones could participate with us before she leaves the board on November 8th. So thank you to everyone for allowing us to move that up and include Candace. This is our second opportunity for public comment. Betty, no forms. All right, acknowledging that. Our next meeting, the next Board of Education meeting, will be held on October 25th, 2022 here at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to now please entertain a motion to adjourn the Board of Education meeting of October 11th, 2022 at 7:59 p.m.
So moved.
Michael?
Support, Jones.
Candace, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 6-0. We are adjourned.